Hi, everyone. So, in today's interview, we'll be discussing some different topics. We have a special guest tonight, which is Sofia. She's a Costa Rican girl. However, she had lived in Guatemala for several years. So today we will be discussing and sharing different opinions since her point of view about humor, folklore, and traditions in Guatemala, but also music and art. Moreover, religion, government and politics, and finally education. So I don't know if Sophia want to introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about you and how many years do you live in Guatemala? How was the experience? And then we will be starting with the questions. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, good night. My name is Sofia Vargas. I'm 20 years old and I lived in Guatemala for almost 3 years. I finished high school there, so I met many Guatemalan people and I love the country very much. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for helping us with the interview and the information. So and thank you for sharing the info. And now I think that Nicole is going to start with some questions. And the first topic that we will be talking about is humor, folklore, and tradition. So Nicole, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. So let's start with the first question that is about humor, folklore, and traditions. Sophie, how would you describe Guatemalan humor?
Humor. Guatemalan people have a really welcoming humor and attitude. When I moved there, people are extremely welcoming, enthusiastic, and they make you feel like home. So that definitely helped me to get used to the country and definitely helped me as well into getting in love with it.
Thank you. So move to the next question that is, can you tell me about an important tradition in your family or community that you live there?
Um, I immediately think about Holy Week that just happened. There's like a special Holy Week carpet that they make with different um substances, I would say. It could be rice, it could be flowers, dust, and there's another word that I wrote it down, sawdust or pine needles. So they're extremely colorful and well, obviously I think we all know what Holy Week is about. It's about remembering that Jesus died and then came back to life for our sins, to forgive our sins. So it's extremely special how Guatemalan people really celebrates this tradition. They are, like I said, extremely enthusiastic. They are, I don't want to say religious people, but they kind of are. But they make it joyful. They make it beautiful in a completely different way that maybe Costa Rica doesn't have.
Okay, thank you. And the last one about that topic is, how do people celebrate special holidays or festivals in Guatemala?
Well, Guatemalan people love like family reunions, so they all gather together in like a special, I don't know, into they go to an uncle's house and they're all together talking, laughing. There's lots of food. Guatemalan people enjoys food and they cook extremely good. So they just gather all together, they talk, it's pretty similar to what we do. They enjoy being with tons of people, and music cannot be left behind. So that's how they celebrate it. They gather all together, play some music, talk, laugh a lot, and the celebration could go till, I don't know, maybe 3 a.m. or even more. So that's what they do.
Okay, now, so we are going to move to the next topic that it is about music and art. And the first question is, what kind of music do people in Guatemala usually listen to?
Well, like I said, I got to know many Guatemalan people, but especially teenagers, because I was a teenager back then. So they listen pretty much the same music as we do. Um, I don't know, they listen to reggaeton, they listen to pop, and well, the more, if you go to the most like indigenous location in Guatemala, music is extremely like cultural. Um, but it's not something that they listened most. Normally, they listen to, yeah, like I said, reggaeton, pop, maybe salsa, bachata, and a lot of Latin music.
Okay, and the next one is, how important is art? Talking about painting, craft, textiles in Guatemala culture.
They express a lot with art, especially paintings. Like I said, Guatemala. I like to remember Guatemala as a very colorful country. So colors are extremely relevant for them. They express a lot. They sell a lot of paintings or different expressions of art. They love dancing, and music, like I said, cannot be left behind. So yeah, I think that's their way, one of the ways they communicate the most, through art. So yeah, it's extremely important for them.
Okay, thank you. Now to close this section, the last question is that if you can tell me about a famous Guatemala artist, musician, or art style.
Ricardo Arjona. Ricardo Arjona is Guatemalan, and he's extremely popular, at least in Latin America. He has a lot of Latin music, and yeah, he's really well known.
Thank you, Sophie. That's all for my part.
Well, hello. Now I would like to ask some questions about religion. The first question is, what role does religion play in daily life in Guatemala?
Okay, yeah. Like I said before, I wouldn't like to call them religious people, but they truly are, especially most of them follow the Catholic religion. So they go to church every Sunday. And God is really into their lives. They truly believe, most of them truly believe that whatever happens to them or whatever doesn't happen to them is because God decided to. So they have many um histories about, I don't know, moments they have had with God. And it's something that really gives them a guidance into their lives.
And now the second question, how do people usually celebrate religious holidays?
They celebrate them in a very respectful way, but also trying to make it joyful. It's not, they have their rules, but they want to have fun within those rules. So they try to remember like it was like a sacrifice that Jesus made for all of us. Um, but they want you to like it. They just don't want you to follow the rules. They want you to get in love with God and with Jesus probably the same way they did. So, yeah, they are extremely respectful. It would be best if you don't make like a joke out of tone because they might get mad at you, but they will definitely want you to truly enjoy what God had made for all of us.
And well, now the last question about this topic. How has religion influenced Guatemalan traditions and festivals?
Sorry?
How has religion influenced Guatemalan traditions and festivals?
Mm, let me think about that. I think like are there big differences? Um well, they influence a lot. They influence a lot. Like I said, they lived according to what they think God made for them. I'm not saying that I do not believe in it, but um they really want to go to church and they really want to get to know about the word of God. They really want to read the Bible and live through that. So it does influence a lot. It really influences a lot in their lives and festivals.
Thank you. Well, now I would like to ask some questions about government. And well, the first, how would you explain the political system in Guatemala to a foreigner?
It's a bit complicated. Um, I think one of the first shocks I had when I moved there is that they have like a military base. They So that was a little bit shocking. I was a little bit scared, not gonna lie. But the government itself or the political system, it's a bit corrupt. People are not that satisfied as they thought they would be. So it's a bit complex, corrupt, and I would say, I don't know, a little bit unfair.
Thank you. Well, now another question is, how do people in your community usually feel about the government?
They We have talked about it since, well, when I was there, I didn't made my research into getting to know the government, but I did talk to my friends, and every single time we talked about it, they would get angry or upset because they think it's unfair. Many of the rules they have made. I had a specific homework once in high school in which I read one of the laws, and it was completely unfair, especially with women. So they get mad about it because it could be extremely unfair with women and kids. So, yeah, that's the reaction, angry or upset.
Well, now the last question is, how easy or difficult is it for young people to trust or participate in politics?
Um, I don't think it's not that hard to participate, but they definitely did not trust the politics in that country. Like I said, they have made or they have approved different laws in which you can tell they're unfair, and the only people that gets benefit from it are people that are in the government. So it builds a lot of disbelief, disagreement, and the complete opposite to trust.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Okay.
So, hello, Sophia again. And let's move to the almost the end of the interview. And now let's talk about education. So,
All right.
I have heard a few things about education in Guatemala, mostly about that they only have like one public university there. And I have heard, well, I have seen on social media actually like a couple minutes ago, I
Mm-hmm.
knew about it, which it was about, let me just look it for it before going through the question because I felt like interested on it. I don't know at all about it, but it says something about the opposition of Walter Mazariegos on the election of the, I don't know how to say it, rector of the USAC.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. So there's like a problem that was something that someone was like explaining to me. The education was facing like for a really big problem, let's say, or big issue right now. Moreover, talking about the question, so besides this, what is the school system like in Guatemala? Since you were like studying there for almost 3 years, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is like? Just tell me your experience and like what you know about it.
There's a big difference in education within public and private school. Guatemala doesn't have like a middle class. It only have low class or high class. So if you go to a public school and you are part of the poor class, you will probably get an extremely pure education. It doesn't give you the strongest base. But if you go to a private school, you get a really covered education. So it's completely different to what we have in Costa Rica. Public schools have like a better education than Guatemala. So those were one of my worries when I moved there, because we're used to get a nice education if we're in a public school. So when I moved there and I saw how poor it was, I was extremely concerned about it. So yeah, it's poor. And I don't know, the schools itself are dirty, or doesn't have the greatest accommodations for to receive kids or adolescents throughout the day. So yeah, it's poor.
So basically, infrastructure is also part of it, and it's very poor.
Yeah.
So well, it was like the next question was pretty close to what you actually answered. So thank you. So there's a big difference between also talking about places like the rural zones, but also urban zones. So it's not only about like the differences between social classes, but also about the differences between cities, because
Yeah.
education will not be the same in a big city than in the indigenous community, let's say. So there are like any benefit there for indigenous groups? They can they study, or can they have the same rights as upper high class?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think they. I don't think the government actually focus on indigenous people, at least in education. Many organizations outside the government might help them, but yeah, the upper class are the ones that get the most benefit in education. So yeah, it's actually devastating.
Yeah. So, since your previous experience studying there,
Hmm.
which one, or even I don't know, your friend's experience or your relative experience, or some story that you have heard or not, um, what are like some challenges that are like that are persistent on Guatemala education for students? Don't worry.
Repeat the question again, please.
Okay, so um, we already heard about like the differences between the social classes, but also the areas where it, let's say, educational centers are located. So what about like, since you're, let's talk about from your point of view or your even previous experience, or also like your friend's experience or relative experience, some story that you have heard, uh, what are like the most common challenges that students on Guatemala face on their educational centers? Like talking about, I don't know, a lack of something, no, but not only focusing on infrastructure, but also more on the educational part. Like if the education is pretty poor, and but you do hear me well? I think like
Yeah,
your
will
internet is not working.
only
Like, sorry.
different Spanish or language. That was one of the first tests.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think your internet wasn't working like pretty well because we couldn't hear at all. So if you wanna like to sum up what you were saying, sorry, it will be better to understand better what you were saying, because the internet basically didn't let us to hear you well, like the idea at all. But you can do it
Okay.
like like a sum up or something. Okay, thank.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, pretty much what I was that one of the first
Sorry.
challenges I think of is no se
Can you
escucha.
turn off, turn on the camera, please?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you listen to me? Okay. Um, I was saying is that the first challenges I immediately think of when if a kid is to study in public school would be the fact that they will not be able to the language. No sé si se escucha. ¿Me
Kind of.
escucharon? Ay, ay, qué estrés. De Ruby. Just a second. Okay. One of the first challenges I think of is the fact that people or kids that will study in a public school will not be able to speak English. They do not know how to teach English. They don't understand the language. So they will graduate and will not be able to communicate with you in a different language that is not Spanish or their indigenous language. Um, Also, the fact of money is one of the other challenges they face to get a better education. So they have to settle down with public education because Guatemala, Guatemalan people are mostly poor people or people in the lower class. And if I'm not wrong, 60% of women in Guatemala doesn't know how to write or how to read. So that's a really high number. So yeah, education is poor. They do not have the money to pay for better education, and they might teach you English, but they will not teach it well. So those would be the challenges.
Okay. More than interesting is kind of worrying. But well, just final question. Do they teach, because we are running out of time, do they teach indigenous languages on schools there?
Um, I think my sister did learn a bit of an indigenous language, but I think it's mostly they teach it in school, not so much in high school. But it would depend on the school you're in. But they are proud of the indigenous people that live there because it's a big percentage of their community. So they will, but it will depend, and it would depend on the school you're studying in.
So I think that we just finished. Thank you very much. Now we can understand that Guatemala is a proudly religious country that preserve its cultures and tradition, but also that it have some issues or decreases, let's say, on some parts like education or politics. So have a good night. We really appreciate your help. And yeah, I don't know if someone else wants to say something before we end.
No, thank you so much, Sophie.
And
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.